जयति पराशरसूनुः सत्यवती हृदयनन्दनो व्यासः यस्य आस्यकमलगलितं वाङ्मयममृतं जगत्पिबति भुजगभोगाभमुद्यम्य हृद्यं निजभुजं दक्षिणं लक्षणाढ्यं ललितमुद्रिक्तविज्ञानमुद्रं भज भज अनन्तमित्यालपन्तं प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रणये पूर्णबोधम् भवदवोष्णेन तातप्यमानान् भुवि परं नाथमप्रेक्षमाणान् भुवनमान्येन च अन्येन दोष्णा भवतु भीर्मा इति नः सान्त्वयन्तम् प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रणये पूर्णबोधम्.
Bhagavadgeeta is one of the original scriptures from India. In this scripture, Lord Krishna is the critical playmaker or impresario. Krishna preaches Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. In the background of Bhagavad Gita, we are introduced to Mahabharata. Krishna's earlier avatar is Rama. According to Hindu philosophy, Rama and Krishna are two avatars of the same divinity. And in par with the popular belief, Rama is the seventh avatar and Krishna is the eighth avatar. There is a big difference in the characteristic principles of Rama and Krishna. These differences are fascinating. We will examine these in closer detail. We will also be exposed to Ramayana as well as Mahabharata. With the background of Ramayana and Mahabharata, we will gently wade into Bhagavad Gita. Gita is the essence of Upanishads. What is found in the Gita also appears in the Upanishads. By seeking these nuggets in Upanishads, an introduction to the Upanishad ensues. While we cover the Gita, we will briefly touch on some of the significant scriptures from Hindu philosophy, including the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Upanishads. However, I will not wholly analyze Gita in the backdrop of these scriptures. Gita has 18 chapters with a total of 700 shlokas. It is impossible to do an in-depth analysis of all the 18 chapters in a short period of 7 or 8 days. It may be simpler to just read and recite the shlokas for 7 or 8 days. This recitation is a spiritual practice called Parayana, a common practice among those who study the scriptures. There is an extraordinary chapter in Gita that summarizes the essence of the earlier chapters. The summary chapter is the 15th chapter. The speciality of this chapter is that Shri Madhwacharya quotes this chapter on many occasions. This chapter was very dear to him. Sri Shankaracharya also said that the essence of Gita is the 15th chapter. In the 15th chapter, Shankaracharya says that the spirit of the Gita is in the 15th chapter and is the essence of Upanishads. Thus, if we consider all the scriptures, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, and Upanishads, the condensed message of all the scriptures resides in the 15th chapter of the Gita. The 15th chapter of the Gita is considered the single most crucial chapter of the epic. And this is according to the historically recognized experts in Vedanta, including Shri Madhwacharya, Shri Shankaracharya, and all the other significant scholars who wrote translations of Gita. Therefore, I will use the 15th chapter of Gita as the main chapter for my discourse. Using the 15th chapter as the background, we will touch on later and previous chapters, including 1 to 14 and 16 to 18. The background will include the 18 parvas of Mahabharata. Using Mahabharata as the backdrop, we will also touch upon Ramayana. For all these Puranas and scriptures, the source, the mother tree, or the Upanishads. Upanishads are the brilliant structures radiating the light of knowledge for anyone engaged in the study of Adhyatma and in the quest for the truth. With this background, we will also have the opportunity to use quotes from the Upanishads while covering the Bhagavadgeetha. Thus, you can take any subject. The main topic is the same. Whether one talks about Ramayana, Mahabharata, Upanishads, or the Bhagavadgeetha. It is the 15th chapter of the Gita. Before entering into the 15th chapter, let me present some background information. Today, there is a general trend that is evident in the current practice of studying the scriptures. The Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and other crucial Vedic literature, and they are losing their way. The main reason is that the number of people reading directly from the original Sanskrit texts are decreasing in number. These days, in general, if one is interested in learning about the Bhagavad Gita or any of the Upanishads, one looks for an English translation. It is a travesty that one has to read in English the analysis or translation of our original Vedic texts in Sanskrit, authored by a foreigner with no exposure to the cultural background of our country. Many people translate Gita into English without any knowledge of Sanskrit. There are translations available of Gita in various regional languages, including Kannada. Most of these translations lack the root inspiration of the Gita and talk about something entirely different and irrelevant. By reading Gita from translations, one is reading something unrelated without really experiencing the valid message of Gita. But this issue is not there in other countries. For example, if Christians want to read their religious text, the Bible, it's available in their mother tongue, English, so they can read it, digest the message, and understand it easily. If they like the content, they may get a hard copy for themselves. In our case, our religious scriptures are in a foreign language to most of us, since Sanskrit is like Latin to us. Our situation is that we get to read about our religious scriptures from someone else who has written translations about the scriptures based on their understanding and interpretation. We carry the burden of misunderstanding or misinterpretation of these translations. Due to such misinterpretation and incomprehension, the reader gets a not entirely convincing message and is left stranded with more questions than answers. In the Upanishads, we come across one crucial point. Perhaps we have all forgotten about it. It is that whatever we do, we should do it with knowledge. Also, we should have faith or belief in our understanding. To do any action, we should do it with knowledge and belief, an essential aspect of the relationship between knowledge, belief, and action. First, know it, believe in it, and then do it. For example, many reasonably pious and religious people follow religious practices like performing various pujas and etc. If you ask them why they are following specific practices, they generally have no answer. The reason may be that they are simply following the tradition practiced by their elders. The knowledge of why we follow certain practices is lost. This loss of knowledge continues for a generation or two. Now, the younger generation is questioning why they should follow such a tradition or custom of their elders when we do not know why we are doing it. Our present day elders lack the knowledge of why, since they have been just following a practice established by their elders. So, when the youngsters ask questions, the elders who do not know the answer simply try to exercise their authority through angry replies like, "You should not ask why. You have to learn to listen to your elders." The younger ones lose faith in religious practice through such actions and reactions of the elders with improper knowledge and understanding. The danger to our culture and tradition comes not from the action of outsiders, but our own actions. We are not teaching our kids about our cultural heritage through proper understanding. As a result, they are losing faith in our religion. It is vital that whatever we do, we should first know it and then believe in it as we do it. We must understand where we have been derailed and become a laughing stock among foreigners. Such a vast wealth of Vedic knowledge has been bestowed upon this nation by our ancestors. We commit a colossal sin if we cannot impart this wealth of knowledge through proper understanding to our younger ones, and will lose the right to call ourselves the heirs to this vast ocean of Vedic knowledge. It is essential for us to be concerned about this matter. A common belief among people is that all this talk about Vedanta is not for us, and these people are constantly engaged in today's transactional world. Since it is such a vast and esoteric subject, we do not aspire to think about it. Shri Madhwacharya says about this venture of a commoner attempting to enter the world of Adhyatma. Shri Madhwacharya was a literary giant and a scholar non-pareil in the world of Vedanta. He was born in the district of South Kannada. He is the founder of the Dvaita philosophy. It is a matter of pride for all who hail from this area, including any Indian. His advice to the ordinary person is not to give up hope to learn about spiritual matters just because they seem too abstract or far removed from reality. He implores them to take the decisive step to start learning by being a student of Adhyatmic studies as much as he can at any given moment. An ordinary person may think one lifetime is not enough to fully complete the scriptural studies. he may have misgivings that he has to start from square one in the next life. To such a person, Shri Madhwacharya says, do not despair that you cannot achieve the goal of attaining self-realization in this lifetime. If one cannot wholly learn all there is to know about the Vedas and Upanishads in one lifetime, one can continue in the next life. He clearly asserts that none of the knowledge gained in such a process goes to waste. The learning process includes recording the knowledge in ourselves and preserving it as a cultural heritage that gets carried into the next life. Thus, while climbing a flight of 10 stairs for the first floor, it is perfectly all right if you can mount only one step in your lifetime. You can climb the second step during the next life, and so on. Climbing one step is still progress in the right direction. There is no loss in such a learning process as long as you have taken a positive step towards learning the scriptures. You have to develop the desire to learn. Your rich cultural heritage is what you aspire to learn. Developing such a desire is an achievement in itself. Even that does not go to waste. If you have such a desire in this lifetime, you will be born in the next life in an environment conducive to transforming passion into the action of learning. None of the steps taken in this path of learning as a student of Indian philosophy goes to waste. Whatever we know in this path is our achievement for this lifetime. This knowledge gets carried into the next life. Thus, Shri Madhwacharya gives us the confidence to take the next step of learning about our scriptures. About 7 or 8 years ago, an American student visited me at my home. Do you know why? His main fear was this. According to Christianity, there is only one lifetime for everyone. If one cannot achieve his goals during this lifetime, there is no concept of reincarnation to complete his goals. He said to me, I have already lost many years in this lifetime without achieving anything. And there is not enough time available to me to achieve anything in this lifetime. And there is no concept of the next life for me. So, please assure me with confidence that there will be reincarnation and I will be content and happy with that knowledge. I have become an emotionally very frustrated person at this point. I told him that our country preaches reincarnation to the entire world. Our whole Hindu philosophy is based on the concept of reincarnation and assured him that he could confidently go back to America with that knowledge and he could achieve his goals in the next life. Why do Christians say there is no incarnation? It is just to make people as good as possible in this life itself. Otherwise, people can postpone their good deeds to the next life by saying, let us enjoy during this life. There is next life for studying philosophy. And the same logic can be carried over to the next life. How can we break out of such a cycle of postponing good actions to the next life and get into doing good in this lifetime itself? Firstly, let us not take it for granted to enjoy this life and do the good deeds in the next life. Secondly, there is no guarantee that we will be reborn as human beings in the next life. We could be reborn as plants or animals. You may have heard of this case of one person here in Manipal who narrated his 5 previous births while being hypnotized. In one of his previous births, he was a Muslim utensil dealer in Ahmedabad. Before that birth, he was an American in Pittsburgh, and in another birth, he was a bird. So, what is the guarantee that one will be born again as human? Now, plants and animals will not be born again as plants or animals since they are not doing any harmful activity but living according to their nature. If we destroy a tree, it may be reborn as a human form. According to Shastras, the human form represents the peak in our evolution. At the peak, the human form is referred to as the one of Arvak. As the wheel turns, the point at the peak has to come down. Trees and animals currently at the bottom of the wheel rotate up, and the humans at the top go down. The only way to evolve from the peak is to fall or liberate oneself from the cycle of life and death. The status of humans referred to as adhogati means pointing to the abyss from the peak. Humans are not aware of this during their lifetime. With this awareness, we cannot just forget about our duties in this life merely by saying that we can postpone our interest in philosophy to the next life. I want to mention one more thing in this context. If a child shows interest in Vedanta or philosophy at a young age, I have seen parents scolding their children by saying that Vedanta and philosophy are for people who are over 60 and retired. It is not for young students going to school, and this is not recommended. Upanishad clearly states, if you are interested in learning about the truth, you have to start learning right now. Otherwise, one cannot regain the time lost in other activities. One can restore anything that is lost, including wealth, but not time. What is past is past. This warning is given to us daily by sunrise. We go to watch the sunset at a beach. We watch the sunset and wonder at the beautiful scenery that lies in front of us at that moment. But that moment is transitory. Darkness comes after sunset. According to Shastras, behind every beautiful truth is a very dark foreboding, and this is the harsh reality of truth of life. After every sunrise or sunset, the harsh reality is that you have lost 24 hours of your lifetime, or closer to death by 24 hours. And this sounds very ominous and not to our liking. One has to agree with the truth of this reality. We do not think like this every time when we watch the sunset. We enjoy the moment, its beauty, and click a photo to capture the memory. Yes, there is an eternal truth behind this transient truth of life that goes very deep. Understand this permanent truth is the study of Indian philosophy. What is the truth of life? What is true living? Who am I? From where did I come? And where am I going? When did I start? And till when will I be? Is my time limited from when I was born to the time I die? If that is the case, there is no need to worry about it because, in the end, I will be just a pile of ashes and dust. But if that is not the case, where was I before I was born? Where will I go after I die? What is the meaning of my life? What is the one force that guides the actions of this life? Lord Krishna says in the Gita, Abhavani, you do not know where you came from. You do not know where you are going. You have 3 moments in life. Why are you just running around aimlessly? In the Bhagavadgeetha, Bhagavan Krishna implores us to know where we came from and where we are going. The search for answers to these critical questions of life, the study through contemplation of such questions and answers realized form the core of our Indian philosophy. To understand Indian philosophy or the Bhagavad Gita, one needs to be aware of 2 things. First, Indian philosophy is a study of how the mind works and its application to our lives. In other words, we find a deep understanding of human psychology in Indian philosophy. The psychology of the mind and the philosophy of life are intertwined as one. In the West, it is very different. Psychology and philosophy are separate subjects of study. In India, we do not find a separate branch of the study of psychology. It does not mean that our ancestors did not understand the psychology of the mind. For them, psychology and philosophy were the same. We study the Bhagavad Gita with the background of human psychology. Our understanding is better with such a background compared to understanding it without a human psychology background. There is also another branch of study in India, numerology. To understand Indian philosophy, one needs to understand numerology. Let me give an example by pointing to the importance of the number 18. The Mahabharata has 18 parvas. The war lasted for 18 days. The total number of soldiers who took part in the war was 18 Akshohinis. Akshohini is a unit of the army and includes a certain number of chariots, elephants, horses, and foot soldiers. The Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. Ishavasya Upanishad has 18 mantras. Hamsa Gayatri mantra has 18 sounds. Bhagavata, the greatest of our Puranas, comprises of 18,000 shlokas. Why this 18? It is essential to understand the significance of this number to understand the Bhagavad Gita. If we do not understand this significance, there is no use in reciting the scriptures as a part of a daily routine or parayana. Not understanding the significance of the basics behind our scriptures is the reason for the erosion of our cultural values. The problem is that 2 types of people are responsible for this current situation. The people who had faith and belief followed the dharmic practice religiously. They did not understand the doctrines of the faith, the Bhagavad-Geetha or the other texts, offered daily prayers to the Lord, but kept the doctrines of the faith in nicely bound volumes with pomp and decor. The group of people who did not have faith threw the doctrines of Dharma away to the dustbin and went about their life merrily. Together, these two groups of people can be held responsible for the erosion of Dharma in our country. To summarize, there was no action to understand the true essence of the Bhagavad Gita and put the message to practice in our daily lives. The group of people who had faith just followed their religious practices piously, keeping the text of Bhagavad Gita in nicely bound volume with pomp and decor. And the people who did not have faith did not care. Altogether, both groups have been unfair to the Bhagavad Gita, causing significant damage. By not attempting to imbibe the true message of the Bhagavad Gita into our daily lives, cultural ethos suffered considerable damage. I would like to present an extraordinary experience in New York involving a good friend of mine originally from Udupi. He is a supervisor in a hospital complex in New York. A famous American psychiatrist has his practice in this hospital complex. In his office, there is a picture hung on the wall. It is the picture of Bhagavan Krishna advising Arjuna, a scene from Gitopadesha. This picture is fairly common in households in India. We can find wooden carvings of the Gitopadesha, nice paintings of the same scene, and many pictures being sold outside any temple of Krishna. But this picture of Gitopadesha seen in New York in a psychiatrist's office? My friend asked the psychiatrist why he has this picture on his wall. The answer he got was simply stunning. The psychiatrist said, Bhagavan Krishna introduced the subject of psychotherapy to this world. When Arjuna was suffering from anguish due to the conflicts in his mind, in the middle of a real battle, Bhagavan Krishna cured him of his mental conflicts through psychotherapy. Thus, it was Bhagavan Krishna who introduced this subject to the world. We use the same doctrines that Krishna taught to make our daily lives. He is the Guru for all of us who practice psychiatry. I cannot think of any other better person as a Guru whose photo I can keep on my wall. How many psychiatrists would talk in a similar vein here in India? How many psychiatrists among us would keep Lord Krishna's photo on their wall? Krishna helped purify Arjuna's mind through psychotherapy by giving a discourse on how to handle mental conflicts. It was Krishna who was able to help Arjuna keep his mind cool in the heat of the battle. Krishna's teachings on psychotherapy are applicable worldwide. He is the Jagat Guru. We say the shloka, Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum, and this is very much true. Sometimes we use the word Jagadguru very lightly. For many of us, Jagat may mean not more than a few houses, including our own. We find some mathas put up advertisements about their Swami being a Jagadguru. So we are used to understanding the word Jagadguru as a guru within a fairly small world of our day-to-day dealings. However, it is not an exaggeration that the entire world draws inspiration from Krishna, the real Jagadguru. From these few experiences, we saw that our gift to the world of philosophy is enormous. Just imagine the impact that Krishna, the Bhagavad-Gita, and the Upanishads have had on the intellectuals engaged in the world of philosophy. When we start diving into Indian philosophy, we find it to be deep, enriching, enjoyable. And it is a travesty that our younger generation lacks proper exposure to it. To top it all, they do not feel an iota of guilt for not reading any of our ancient scriptures, and they are proud of their ignorance. I've heard this from a well-known literary gentleman in Bangalore. He said, "I have not read our scriptures, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and I am proud of this fact." Why are our people proud of their ignorance? I cannot understand why our people look down upon our cultural heritage. Ignorance seems to be a qualification in this country. I recall the words of John Woodrow, who used to be the Chief Justice in Calcutta during British times, and this is before independence. When he asked a group of college students about their opinion on ancient Indian scriptures like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Bhagavadgeetha, they responded with disdain that they are all meaningless. The popular belief among the younger generation, even at that time, was that our scriptures were a pile of blind beliefs and grandmother stories. Such response from the younger generation, who talked about such a vast country's original scriptures without adequately understanding, saddened John Woodrow. He wrote with so much anguish, "Please do not say that the original ancient scriptures from India are meaningless. Please try to read them. Try to understand them. They may be good or they may be bad, but they have meaning. The ancestors of India were not fools to write about what is meaningless." John Woodrow wrote this over 60 years ago. But what he wrote then is relevant even today. We have a huge wealth of spiritual capital of Adhyatma philosophy in this country. We cannot forget our rich wisdom of spiritualism, which lies right in front of our eyes. If we lose our cultural heritage, we will not even realize the enormity of our loss. Having wealth is not as important as being aware of our wealth. If we are not aware of our riches, it is as good as being a pauper. It is time we wake up to realize our wealth of wisdom of spirituality and give it the recognition and respect it deserves. The need of the hour is to start opening texts like the Bhagavad-Gita, read them, understand them, and inculcate them into our daily living.